All right, folks, welcome to another edition of Outspoken. I'm Dan Sileo, and what a week, huh? NFL camps are opening. You got Major League Baseball. The NBA news is absolutely insane with one of the biggest names in NBA history. Guys, fire the cannons. All right, LBJ goes to Philadelphia in the city of brotherly love. Incredible. I mean, with all the choices that he had, especially with him taking the league minimum, for him having an opportunity to go and chase rings. Let's just say what this is. He is chasing rings. And this is a good thing. Instead of being a guy who's being accused of padding stats, he's going to try to win another NBA championship. They've got the best starting five now, in my opinion, in the Eastern Conference. If he would have went to Miami, you're sitting there maybe thinking, Bam, Giannis and him, and then what else? But now with what you have with Edgecombe and with Maxey and with Jaylen Brown, you put Embiid in there, and now you have LeBron. I mean, you give yourself the best chance to win an NBA championship, and it's got to come through the Eastern Conference. Everyone knows if he would have stayed with the Los Angeles Lakers, the opportunity for him to get through OKC or San Antonio was not big. But now his road and his path to potentially winning that fifth NBA championship, and by the way, in a fourth different city. So let's put that GOAT conversation back on the table here. If this guy wins a fourth NBA championship in four different cities, and let's say he wins the MVP award in the finals, you've got to make the conversation. This guy's delivered in every single city that he has gone to. Look, we're not talking about a guy here that's not going to be a difference maker. Look, I compared this week on one of my other shows to Messi going to Inter Miami. Look, you're not getting Messi Barcelona, but what we saw in the World Cup, you're getting one of the greatest athletes of all time. You're getting one of the greatest NBA players of all time in LeBron James. Look, he could easily be a guy who's going after and just going and padding stats. He could go anywhere and do what he wants when it comes to padding those stats and make the argument that he is the GOAT. He is the all-time leading scorer in NBA history. So at the end of the day here, this move is clearly about chasing rings. Good for him, man. I got to tell you, LeBron wants that final ring and maybe two rings. And I'll say it too. People ask, Sills, what do you think of his chances of winning the NBA championship? You know, usually you make an argument that the Sixers are one of the worst run organizations. No way. I got to give it to Josh Harris, too, the owner of the team. Since Josh Harris has taken that team over, now you're getting a new arena in Philadelphia. You went out and you got rid of that stiff general manager in Daryl Morey, and you brought in one of the greatest minds in NBA history in Bob Myers. Let's not forget something with Bob Myers. Bob Myers built that Golden State Warrior dynasty with Steph Curry and them guys. I mean, he built that dynasty. They weren't a very big basketball team, and that's kind of what the Sixers team looks like with this starting five. Not really a lot of size with this team. However, you got Bob Myers, dude. So he goes out, he gets rid of that Paul George contract, sends it up to Boston, and in return he gets Jaylen Brown, and then he turns around a couple months later and gets LeBron James. What a stroke of genius that is by Josh Harris, the owner of the 76ers. Great move, running that organization, and now LeBron James is in the city of brotherly love, trying to win his fifth NBA championship and giving that GOAT argument. If he can do it and get across the finish line, he makes that a strong argument for being the greatest basketball player that's ever lived. All right, so NFL camps are opening. What's the big storyline here? I think one of the big storylines has got to be, what's Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes going to look like? I'll make you a comparison. So years ago, when Tom Brady won his first couple Super Bowls, let's not forget there was a 10-year gap in between them retooling the football team and then putting the proper talent around Tom Brady and watching Tom Brady mature as a quarterback in the NFL. Well, the same can be said here with what's going on with Brett Veach, the general manager, Andy Reid, and with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. Are they going to get themselves back in a position for them to be a team that's going to fight for an NFL championship? Look, he's one of the great transitional players or one of the great generational players of all time in NFL history. Ambidextrous, the guy does everything. If you're going to start a team, this is the guy. I asked Jimmy Johnson the question years ago, what would his market value be if you ever put quarterback Patrick Mahomes on the open market? He said it'd be 5 first-rounders, which in a sense means he's one of the only guys in the league that's not tradable. You can't trade for a guy like this. This is a guy that's a generational player that changes the direction of your franchise. He's a guy that you could put anywhere. Well, maybe not anywhere like the Jets, but he can go anywhere and be a difference maker. Andy Reid also chasing down Don Shula and also Bill Belichick as the greatest coach in NFL history. What do that Kansas City Chief organization do this offseason to really help him? I really don't see a lot has been added to that offensive side of the football. Look, you still got Steve Spagnuolo on the defensive side, and you also have Andy Reid, as we mentioned, on the offensive side. And, of course, you've got the great Patrick Mahomes. You're in a very tough AFC West. You got Denver, who I think is the best team in that division and maybe the best team in the conference. And also you got a bunch of other teams like the Chargers. And, again, Patrick Mahomes is going to have to fight through Justin Herbert. And I think that's going to be a hell of a battle for the AFC West crown. And you got a Raider team who we don't know what's going to happen there with Clint Kubiak. So the direction of Patrick Mahomes is going to be interesting this coming football season. I think the other storylines as we go into camp has to be this. I mean, look, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are just spectacular talent. They are great football players. They're the best quarterbacks right now, potentially in the National Football League. Okay, all that being said, you do have to win. And I don't mean just win. You have to make your legacy in the postseason. Look, you get paid in the regular season, and your legacy is built in the postseason. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have fallen short. You know, if you want to be in that stratosphere of being in the conversation with the Dan Marinos and with the conversations of, say, a Joe Montana or a Tom Brady and guys like that, you got to win. And you've got to win significantly. I mean, Joe Montana, think of it. His 4 Super Bowl victories. You're talking about a guy that won 4 Super Bowls, 135 quarterback rating, and no picks. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, you got to win. All right, so there was some news that Diego Pavia was waived by the Baltimore Ravens. Hey, look, when you need a Tokyo phone book to look somebody in the eye, the chances of you making a National Football League team at the quarterback position is going to be a little tough. Look, here's a guy that I think was a great college football player. That doesn't necessarily always translate to going to the National Football League. Diego Pavia was a great college football player in the same essence that Tim Tebow was a great college football player. That doesn't necessarily always carry over, especially when you have the issues that he had when it comes to his height. Look, Diego Pavia was great. He completely transformed Vanderbilt football. You have to understand something about Vanderbilt football. Vanderbilt football in the SEC was roadkill. The only thing that Vanderbilt built back in the day was debate teams and atomic bombs. They didn't build football teams. They didn't build sports teams. And Diego Pavia was part of really the turning around of that sports program and them being a viable part now of the Southeastern Conference and giving them a chance for those guys to go out and win an SEC title. So again, he was really important for Vanderbilt football. But NFL, I never thought it was going to be something that would be there. And again, we were right. Hey, don't forget my great friends at Morgan & Morgan, the #1 injury law firm in all of America. Told you about our great friends that are in Pennsylvania that were initially offered $650K. They got nearly $30 million in settlement. Do me a favor, guys. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's FOR/big sales pound 529. Do me a favor. You tell them Big Sales sent you. We're going to talk to Scott Wetzel next and get his thoughts on LeBron James next here on SportsGrid. Man, as I just mentioned, there's a lot going on in the sports calendar. And usually this is like the dead time, going into the NFL camps and getting ready for college football. We had the Milan Olympics, we had World Cup, we had all of this and a lot of drama going on. And without a doubt, Scott Wetzel joins us here. But before we get into World Cup and the rest of that, Scott, I mean, your takeaways, were you stunned that he chose LeBron James to go to the city of brotherly love? I was thinking he was going to maybe head down to South Beach again and go down there with Giannis and those guys, or maybe go home to Cleveland. Were you surprised he picked Philadelphia to go on and continue to try to win another championship?
I was a little surprised, Dan, but I really did thought there were two places. I thought Cleveland, and ultimately I did think he was going to go back to Cleveland. But then I thought Philadelphia was the second choice. I never bought it to Miami. The moment Miami sent out that little tweet, text, or whatever they did, I knew he was not going to. That was Miami saying, we know you're not coming here. You know what? We're going to screw you anyway. We're going to get your fan base all excited, and now they're going to hate you for not coming down to Miami, not us. So I knew that was disaster. I didn't buy into the Golden State. They're over the hill. That he was not going to Minnesota either. So I really thought it was going to be Cleveland. But I did think, though, Dan, if he really wanted to win, what would be the best opportunity? And that's Philadelphia. I mean, I do love this 76ers team. I liked it without LeBron. In fact, I think I like it better without LeBron, to tell you the truth. There's only one basketball on the court, and I don't know how he's going to mix and all this other stuff. But if he really wanted to win, and accept the fact he's going to make chump change, league minimum for a veteran, then it had to be, to me, either Cleveland, because he could just say, yeah, I'm going back home, or Philadelphia, because I thought that gave him the best chance to win.
Yeah, absolutely here. And I got to just tell you here, boy, I'll tell you, we just got something in our ear here that Kyle Shanahan was in a car crash and he's going to be limited during camp. I mean, boy, you talk about a football team that was considered. We were going to talk a little NFL in the next segment, but this is just breaking news that Kyle Shanahan was in a car accident and he's going to be limited, as we said, in camp right now. The impact you think that has on that 49ers team?
It all depends how long is he going to be out. I mean, they're saying, I'm sure it's just initial reports, so is he not going to be available for the regular season? It doesn't sound like he's going to be available for training camp. I mean, if it's just training camp, he comes back late August, maybe beginning September, maybe not that much. But if it does linger into, September, who knows, October, I don't know how serious it is. You're out without your head coach. That can't be good, obviously, right? That's a tough division. They got a tough schedule, a lot of expectations. That's unfortunate news, obviously. I wouldn't be betting any overs under totals. I'll say that.
Absolutely here. We'll keep everyone updated on that. Let me get back to LeBron here on that. How about Bob Myers? Scott, and the job that he's done ever since, Josh Harris. I mean, he ends up taking, Daryl Morey out of the head role there as general manager of that basketball team, and he hires him as the overall president of the operation there. I mean, look at what he's done. He gets the Jaylen Brown deal. He ends up moving that Paul George contract, and then he ends up bringing in, as we said, Jaylen Brown and LeBron James. Here's the guy that built that Golden State Warrior franchise and that dynasty for 4 NBA titles. I mean, wow, what a move by really the owner of this team. And do they have the best starting 5 in the East?
Oh, yeah. I think they get the best starting 5 in the NBA. Maybe San Antonio, you might, depending on how you feel about Wembanyama, but absolutely. I mean, again, the only thing with that team is, can they share? You got two big ifs, Dan, right? And they are legitimate ifs. If, Joel Embiid can stay healthy. And then if they, LeBron can fit in and accept the fact that he's certainly not the number 1 option. He's not the number 2 option behind Maxey. He's probably not the number 3 option behind Brown or Maxey, depending on what order you put him in. He's at best the number 4 option. Can his ego, accept that? You automatically think, yes, why not? If you want to win a championship, that's easier said than done. But as far if they did, oh, absolutely. What team is better than that? That's why, the boys in Vegas don't get caught napping too often, Dan. But I said before the announcement was made, Philadelphia was 22-1 to win it all. And I said, listen, I like that team now. Even if LeBron doesn't go to that team, 22-1, that team is loaded with the Brown trade. And now you get LeBron, and they do drop to 10-1, but I still think, that's a pretty good price. I think that is by far the best, starting unit in the Eastern Conference.
You think the Knicks are a one and done team? You think they like that was their shining moment? This is not something that's been built for a long time? Or do you think they have a shot to again come back and win this thing?
Well, the NBA season's such a long season, Dan, and you don't need home court advantage. We saw them. We saw it with the Knicks, last year, right? They weren't a great regular season team, and hell, they nearly lost to Atlanta in the first round of the playoffs, believe it. Remember, they were down 2-1 to the stinking Atlanta Hawks. So I think they're a good team, but they are the classic team. I'm here in New York, and the buildup and the excitement and the thrill of them winning is so huge. You've been involved in sports your whole life. They are the classic team that's set for a letdown. They really are. Now, again, the NBA season's a long season. They're going to make the playoffs. Can they turn it around, April and May for the postseason? Maybe. But again, another team, I wouldn't be betting their overs on their win total. I think that is a classic letdown. We did what we wanted to do. Everyone's so happy, so giddy. I'm a Red Sox fan. When you win that first World Series, as we did a few years back, right after 50, 60 years, maybe 86 years of winning, there is a letdown. It's just not the same. And I get the sense this Knicks team is set up for that.
Scott, I got to ask you about this Caitlin Clark thing and this saga that goes on. It's either intentional or incompetence. In your opinion, how they handle her, what do you think it is?
Well, being the world-class AAU 5th, 6th grade referee that I am, Dan, I will tell you, I say the same thing. But I say it's not incompetent. They can't be that bad. The officials can't be that bad. So it's got to be preordained for whatever reason. They don't like her. They just don't. It's the stupidest thing, not including her in a three-point shootout. Maybe she was asked. Maybe she wasn't. I don't know. Not putting her on the poster last week when they celebrated the 30-year anniversary. All the fouls you see that aren't called against her. The dopey head coach who doesn't seem to like her either. The WNBA's got the golden goose, and they're trying to kill it off for some dopey reason. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. You got the greatest thing in the world given to you, and all the WNBA wants to do is just, no, we don't care. We're going to alienate her. Crazy.
It is. It's completely incompetence and crazy. Absolutely. We're going to talk more with Scott Wetzel. We're going to talk some Major League Baseball, and I'm going to take him around to some of the camps in the National Football League as we get ready for the upcoming season. We'll do that next here on SportsGrid. More with Scott Wetzel here as we go around the horn here, talking some sports with him here. And I'm going to take you into Major League Baseball here. Can anybody beat the Dodgers?
Yeah, listen, we saw that almost last year, right? I mean, Toronto had them on the ropes as much as you could have anybody on the ropes. So you get a best-of-7 series, yeah. Do I think somebody will? No. The American League is so bad, right? I don't think it's going to be an American. That'd be a pretty good prop bet. Who beats the Dodgers? I would say a National League team, whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's Atlanta, whether it's Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee, if they ever got healthy with their pitching staff, they could. But I don't think the American League team will. You want to say the Yanks, Stan, because of that top two rotation with Fried and Cole, maybe Rodon as well. Yeah, you get them in a best-of-7 if they were on their A game, but their bats are so bad. And that doesn't look like Judge is coming back this year. So ultimately, to the answer, no, I think the Dodgers win again. Although I will say it's not good for the players. You want a little conspiracy? If the Dodgers win again, Major League Baseball is broke. They pay $500 million. We got to change the system. If the Dodgers don't win and Milwaukee does or Cleveland does or one of these lower payers, that helps the system. That helps the players say, listen, you don't have a salary cap. And look, you got a low salary team winning the World Series. So the players really should be rooting against the Dodgers, and the owners should be rooting for the Dodgers, because then the public will be saying, look, baseball's broke. We can't have the Dodgers spending $350 million and winning the World Series every single year like they're doing.
Scott, I saw, I saw David Stearns in a press conference talking about the mess of the Mets, and that's what it is. It's the mess of the Mets.
Yeah.
Do you think he survives it, one, here? And secondly, what do you do here on the trading deadline? Do you just pack up everybody and move everyone and start anew? You spent more money than the Los Angeles Dodgers this offseason. Yeah. What do the Mets do? The messy Mets, where do they go?
Yeah. Outside of Freddie Peralta, who's in the last year of his contract, which I actually thought was a decent trade, but he's been brutal. I don't think they move anybody. There's been some Francisco Lindor talk about him being traded, but he's hitting .210, Dan. He's got 5 years at $30+ million left on his contract. I mean, outside of maybe San Francisco, which seems to be desperate for players, but who's going to trade for that contract? So they may want to move some players, but I don't think ultimately they will. And they got an interim manager, and I can't help that they probably are saying, let's try this one more time. As far as Stern surviving, the word is yes, but then they also had the word of their manager, Mendoza, surviving, and look, he got fired. So I would not be surprised for a move, but I don't think he will. I think he does survive it. I think they go one more time with this unit and see if they can turn things around next season.
All right, let me take you into some football camps here. Mahomes and the Chiefs, are they going to get back into the picture, in your opinion, in 2026?
If you're telling me Mahomes is healthy, which is, in question, at least for the start of the season, yeah, probably. AFC, though, is loaded. I will say it's loaded. But Kansas City, like all the other teams in the AFC West, they have a tough schedule. They're playing the NFC West. That's San Fran, that's LA, Seattle, on top of the teams they're already playing in the division. They NFL didn't do them any favors for finishing in last place in their division, or at least next to last place, ahead of Oakland or the Raiders, Las Vegas. But faith in Mahomes, faith in the NFL. Yeah, I like Cincinnati too, though. I'm buying one more year into my boy Joey B and that offense. They improved their defense a little bit. I've been burned by them since they've gone to the Super Bowl, but I think it'll be a Cincinnati-Kansas City AFC Championship game.
Well, I call him Joe Namath Burrow, so hopefully he's able to stay healthy if he can play this year here. The Seahawks, I think John Schneider's the best general manager in football. I think the guy in Philly's probably second and very close with Howie Roseman, but here they are again. If you think about what they did, Scott, last year to win that Super Bowl, they got a $30 million quarterback who was a reclamation project. They had one superstar on that team after getting rid of DK Metcalf, and JSN turned into a lightning rod for that offense. Do you think they can repeat again?
Again, tough schedule. Look at their schedule. They're playing the AFC West. It bounces back and forth. Then they got the first place schedule, Super Bowl schedule. Now they got all the eyes on them as well. Last year, not really right. It's funny, Dan. You played football, obviously. I don't know what Sam Darnold can do to make people believe in him. First it was get to the playoffs. He did with Minnesota. Then it's take the next step, get to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl even, and he does that. And people still really just don't, and myself included. I'll throw myself in the mix. I don't believe in him either. This guy was so bad with the Jets. But then it's the Jets. It's kind of weird. Like the Jets are so bad. Why do they hold it against Sam Darnold? And he really didn't have a shot with Carolina either. They were bad also. So, but I don't think they repeat. It's tough repeat. You got to be really, really, really good. I don't think Seattle repeats. When you look at their schedule, they're going to have to win some road games in the postseason.
Scott, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for doing it. The legendary Tony Dungy's next here on SportsGrid. This is always one of my favorite conversations with this man. I'll tell you what, you talk about somebody you want to play for, you talk about somebody you want raising your kid at the same time. Coach Tony Dungy, Hall of Famer, joins us now here, and we're so blessed to get him on. And Coach, thank you so much for doing this. And I got to show you the book here, man. We had Coach Trestman on last week here, and you did the forward from him, and just a little bit on this. And he's talking about teaching the game, just the relationship that you had with Coach Trestman. I know you guys were roommates at the University of Minnesota, and really a long-time relationship. And you wrote the forward, you and Steve Young. Great here. Give me a little bit of perspective here on your thoughts with Coach Trestman.
Well, Mark Trestman is one of the smartest guys I've ever been around. We met each other when I was 19 years old. I was a sophomore at Minnesota. He was a freshman, incoming freshman. We were roommates during training camp, and Tom Moore was our quarterback coach. That's where we learned the game, and that's where we kind of grew up. And Mark was a studious guy and just really loved football, loved the learning, and became a great teacher.
Absolutely. Coach, this is the 10th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken, of you being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You were in 2016's class, and now here we are, 2026. Any reflections and any changes that have gone on with you in having that great title of being a Hall of Famer? Tell me a little bit where you were when you got the knock on the door and what you thought, and how's it changed you? Or maybe it hasn't changed you, Coach.
It's been pretty amazing. It was just one of those special things. 2000, I think 14 was my first year to be eligible. And I was on the ballot a couple times, didn't make it, didn't get close. But back in those days, they brought all the finalists to the Super Bowl, and you were in a hotel, and they said, hey, we'll call you between whatever the hours are. If you get a phone call, that means you didn't make it. If you get a knock on the door, we're telling you that you're in. So this particular year, my son, who was about 8 or 9 at the time, said, I want to go with you, Dad. I think this is going to be your year. And I didn't really want to take Justin because I didn't want him to be disappointed with all the people on the ballot. I didn't see how I was going to make it, but he just begged and begged. So I took him, and we're sitting in the hotel room in San Francisco. It's Peyton Manning and the Broncos against Cam Newton and the Panthers. And I was going to get to see Peyton's last game no matter what. So I was fired up about that. And about 5 minutes before the deadline they gave us, they knocked on the door. And it was just one of those unbelievable moments where you can't believe it. I mean, I dreamed when I was young about playing in the National Football League. I even dreamed about winning the Super Bowl. Never dreamed about being in the Hall of Fame. It just didn't cross my mind. And then, kind of the biggest thrill for me that evening when they announced it on the honors show, they have a different Hall of Famer introduce each person. Well, the first pro game I ever went to, my dad took me to see the Lions against the Browns because he wanted me to see Jim Brown and this guy who he thought was the greatest player ever in the NFL. I was 8 years old when I saw that game, and now I'm 60, standing backstage, and who introduces me? This voice bellows out, Tony Dungy, and it's Jim Brown introducing me, and one of the biggest thrills of my life.
Coach, outside of your family and your father and your mother, when you were inducted, how much did you reflect back with Chuck Noll and how much of an impact that he had on your life? And really, it all started. Coach, you played, I'm going to say it, you played on the greatest football team of all time in NFL history. 4 titles in 6 years, all those legendary players that were on that franchise, all the coaching legendary people that were in the front office. How much of an impact did that have on you?
It changed me, Dan, and really made me into the person that I became, not only as a player, but as a coach. All of my fundamentals, everything I believe really came from that. It's amazing. I just got a note from one of my former teammates. Joe Green's 80th birthday is coming up, and they want guys to send a birthday message to Joe Green. And that, I think back to just meeting him in training camp and the impact that he had on me and how to do that. I still don't wear my Super Bowl rings today. Uh, I was on that third team, and we got our rings, and Joe Green said, okay, young man, wear that ring for a week, show it to everybody you need to show it to, and then I don't want to see it again because we got more to win. Well, I took it off. I haven't worn it since, really, because I think Joe Green might be behind me. But it was an amazing group. I got there. The very first meeting we had, Coach Noll down. They've won 2 Super Bowls already. I'm a college quarterback that's going to switch positions and go to defense. I'm getting ready to write down all the things that he's going to say in this first meeting. He says, men, you're professionals. You get paid to play football, but don't make football your whole life. You've got to learn how to do things off the field. You've got to find some satisfaction off the field. I'm here to help you find that. He didn't say anything about winning and whatever. He got to that later on. Hey, fundamentals, and we'll do things the right way. But you've got to learn how to be a man. And that stuck with me, Dan. That's what he taught all of us. And then 4 years later, I'm a 25-year-old with no coaching experience. And he calls me and says, I'll create a position on my staff if you want to do it because I believe in you. And I said, well, coach, what do I do? What do you want me to do? And he said, you only have one job as a coach, and that's to help your players. And those 2 things stuck with me, Dan, my entire career. Football's important. The game's important. We win as a team, but don't make football your whole life. And then as you're coaching, front office, any position you have with the team, you're there to help the players be the best they can be. And that was Chuck Noll to a T.
Coach, I heard a story about you in a meeting once. Now, I never have heard you raise your voice, but I heard that there were a couple guys late, not going to like events, and you walked into a meeting and you looked at everybody and said, I'm not showing you anything about the Oakland Raiders. I'm showing you this. And somebody told me you actually raised your voice in there, and he goes, "We ain't doing anything until we fix who we are." Is that a true story?
That is a very true story. Most of the guys who played for me cannot remember hearing me yell. And we had gone through, I think, 8 losses at that time. We were 1-8, and I was still remaining very calm. Well, we're coming in, getting ready for the Raiders on Wednesday, and Tuesday was the players' off day. And I had made that same speech. Hey, we've got to build the community. We've got to find satisfaction off the field. We've got to be role models. So I come in on Wednesday morning. There's a note on my desk that Eric Rett and Reagan Upshaw, 2 of our players, had missed appointments that they had. One was at an elementary school. One was an autograph session. And I went in there and I roasted the guy. I said, "We're 1-8, and this is the reason why. We're not going to win any games until you guys figure this out. And I can't figure it out for you. And you're going to have to do it. I'm not going to talk about the Oakland Raiders. I'm not going to talk about blocking, tackling, plays, what we're going to do, because we can't win if you guys don't grow up." And I left the meeting, and we won that game in overtime and turned it around. We won 5 of our last 7. We won the first 5 of the next year, and we were on our way.
Coach, how much do you think, again, changing the culture when you got to Tampa, how important that was for you to change the culture when you got there, let alone just telling them how good they are, changing the culture?
It was all of that, Dan, because I had coached against those guys, and I saw the talent that was there. Warren Sapp was there. John Lynch was there. Derek Brooks was there. Hardy Nickerson was there. We had Trent Dilfer was there. The tools were in place, but they didn't feel like they could win, so it wasn't important to them. And what I stressed was, hey, we've got to build a team. We've got to be unified, and if we do that, we're going to win. And those guys bought into it, and that's what happened.
Absolutely here. Coach, we're going to continue more of a conversation with you on today's coaching and man, you got a lot of people in the front offices, more with the legendary Hall of Famer Tony Dungy. Here next on Sports Grid.
I know you didn't. Talk.
I'm innocent.
Got the wrong guy. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything. Okay, it was me. I did it.
Bringing an owl to an interrogation? That's a power move.
Every time.
Yeah. Hiring America's largest injury law firm for your injury? That's also a power move. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
The legendary Tony Dungy, Hall of Famers, joining us here on SportsGrid. Coach, do you think it's easier today to coach in a National Football League or harder to coach in a National Football League? When you guys, you and Jimmy Johnson and guys like that, we were just talking, you guys were the iron fist. I mean, it was your way or the highway. Now it seems to be a collective. Do you think it's a little bit more difficult to have to answering to all the people today?
I think it is more difficult. And one of the things that I think that I didn't have to deal with was social media and guys trying to build a brand away from the game. Our whole thing was selling them, as you talked in that last segment, about the culture. Hey, if we can be the Tampa Bay Bucks and we can win, that is what we need to be after. And that's going to be the most important thing. Well, it was not hard to get guys to buy into that. Now you come and sell that. And guys would say, okay, but I still have to build my brand. I've got to build my brand for the future. I've got to get my followers. I've got to make sure that everybody knows who I am. And to me, that just would create one more roadblock into creating that culture.
Coach, let me ask you about the Bucs. You think Baker Mayfield is a Super Bowl type quarterback that can take that team with Coach Bowles to that game and win that game?
I do. I think he's captured the city. He's captured the locker room, the building. The players believe in him. Every guy that I talk to on that team just speaks so highly of him. And I think he's got the drive, and I think he's got the talent to do it. Um, I'm excited for them, and I do think they've got a chance.
Coach, I want to tell people the story again about when you got fired from Tampa. I was doing my morning show in Tampa. By the end of my show, Coach Dungy had a job with the Colts, and I was doing a 4-hour show. And, Coach, I've never seen anything like it. It was huge news in Tampa Bay, obviously, that Coach had been let go. And all of a sudden, I'm getting text messages from Indianapolis guys, and they're texting me going, Sills, Coach Dungy's getting this job. I'm like, what? By the end of my program, you had that job. I mean, Coach, did it really happen that fast?
It did, and it was God's plan all the way, Dan. I got let go. We lost the playoff game to Philadelphia. The owners were kind of going back and forth. The Glazer family deciding what they wanted to do. They called me in the morning and said, "Hey, we decided we're going in another direction. We're going to announce it." And I said, "Well, would you mind if I go to the press conference?" And they were a little startled, and I don't think they knew what I was going to say, but they allowed me to do it. I thanked them for hiring me, giving me a chance. I said I didn't agree with the decision. I thought we were close to the Super Bowl, but I understood it, and God would provide the next steps. I don't know what that's going to be, but thank you for believing me and getting me started. Well, I got home after the press conference, and there's a message on my old answering machine. It was Jim Irsay from the Colts, and he said, "Hey, we've made a change here, and you're the guy I want. Call me back, please." So I called him and he said, "This is not a job interview. Do not have an agent call me. You're the guy I want. The chemistry and the teamwork and the camaraderie and the off the field stuff that you put together in Tampa, that's just what I'm looking for. How much money you want? You think about it. Tell me how much money you want, and you've got the job." And that was basically it. And I can't even explain how it happened other than I just think God provided it.
No doubt. And then he reconnected you with Tom Moore, who was the OC there
That was the
for
amazing part.
Peyton Manning. I mean, it just went full circle for you. And it was something like you say, I'm a man of God myself. Things work out like that, Coach. I mean, you must have just thought that was meant to be.
I had tried to hire Tom Moore was my quarterback coach in college in 1973 to 76. Then he went to the Steelers. But we ran a no huddle offense. Everything was in the quarterback's hand. He made me the quarterback that I was. I learned so much from him. So I tried to hire him when I got to the Bucks, but he was coaching with the Lions, and Wayne Font said, "There's no way I can let this man go." So I figured, okay, it's just not going to work out. He ends up leaving there, going to Indianapolis, Peyton's rookie year, coaching him, putting the same no-huddle offense in. Jim Irsay calls and gives me the job, and Tom Moore and Peyton Manning are sitting there waiting for me. You couldn't ask for anything better.
No doubt about it. All right, Coach, I'm going to ask you a tough question here on quarterbacks in the NFL today. If you had to pick a quarterback right now to win a ball game between these two, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, who are you picking?
Well, I think I'm picking Patrick Mahomes on past performance, and he has just been that clutch guy in a lot of situations. I love Josh Allen. I love the athleticism. He has done a lot as well, but in those clutch moments, Mahomes is a guy that you don't want to face. If you're on defense, you don't want Patrick Mahomes to have the ball with the last drive to win the game.
Coach, why is Jalen Hurts so misunderstood? You look at his resume, the last 4 years, he's 50-18. He's got 2 NFC championships. He's got a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP, but yet we're hearing conversation out of Philly. If he doesn't have a good year, this could be the year they move on from him and maybe even Nick Sirianni. Now, Coach, is it Philly or is there something else to it?
Yes, no, it's the Philadelphia media for sure. Jalen has done a great job. His players love him. The coaching staff is all in his corner. Aaron Moorhead is their receiver coach. Aaron played for me in Indianapolis, and I get the straight scoop from him. There is nothing in the building that's saying that Jalen Hurts is not our guy. But that Philadelphia media, it doesn't matter what you do. It's what have you done for me lately. I'm going to be anxious to see how quickly they turn on LeBron James. We'll find out. But it just doesn't seem like you can do enough in Philadelphia, no matter who you are.
No doubt about it. Joe Burrow, Coach, what do you make of him?
Joe Burrow is a tremendously talented guy. He's another guy that has the respect of everyone in his building. He has done a great job. Everybody talks about the receivers he's got. Yes, they're very good, but he has helped them be very good. What he hasn't been able to do is stay healthy. I do think they need better pass protection. They need to make sure they have that running game going around him. When they had Joe Mixon and they were balanced, that was the best offense that they had. So they've got to find a way to build that running game and keep him healthy. If they do, they can compete for a Super Bowl as well. He's that talented.
Well, we're going to see Coach Dungy. Are you going to the Hall of Fame game this year? Are you going to be in Canton?
I will be. I always go ever since I got inducted, and this year is going to be very special. Adam Vinatieri, who was with us for a great portion of his career going in, we'll have a lot of Colts fans and a lot of our former players there. So I'm looking forward to it and pumped up.
You got it. Coach, thank you so much. I love you very much for doing this. Thank you. Sileo says next here on SportsGrid. Well, I got to say this about a coach who's going to tell the truth here, which is sometimes very rare. Pete Golden, the head football coach of the Ole Miss Running Rebels, has actually said something that is truthful when we talk about today's college recruiting. Tampering. Well, guess what? He's right. Pete Golden at the SEC meetings in Tampa was talking about with Lane Kiffin, and some of them were saying that tampering and going on and recruiting some of the players off of other people's rosters. And he made the comment here. The Ole Miss coach accused of tampering this offseason essentially defended tampering and calling out, he says, the hypocrisy in a broken system. He's exactly right. Are you under the impression now when you have nil and transfer portal that you think there's ethics when it comes to building a roster? When you're talking about the amount of money that's being generated in college football today, look at the salaries of these coaches. Look at the revenue that's being generated by these television networks today. You're talking about integrity? Give me a break. Integrity went out the window when it comes to college recruiting years ago. Now you've got nil in money involved. Folks, money exposes. And we're seeing the ugly side of nil in college sports today. Look, did you not think when you opened up the floodgates and you got the genie out of the jar that you thought that there wasn't going to be collateral damage when it came to people gambling, money being spent, nil, and how much money if a kid can make here at Ole Miss or LSU? Why do you think Lane Kiffin left in the middle of a college football playoff run? Why did he leave? More money. Had nothing to do with integrity. Had everything to do with salary. Lane Kiffin's trying to tell everyone, well, I have a better chance to win a national championship at LSU, which I happen to think he does. But at the end of the day, you left those kids in a lurch, dude. You're talking about going to a place because they give you a better opportunity to make more money and to give kids more opportunities when it comes to nil. Let's be fair here. The teams that spend the most money are going to be the teams that win national championships. This is just going to be like any other sport. College football are turning into about 30 Los Angeles Dodgers. If you have the most money, you're going to contend. You're going to compete. How do you think the Indiana Hoosiers ended up winning a national championship? Do you understand the Indiana Hoosier program was the worst college football program in the last 100 years? How did they turn that around? Easy. Recruiting and money. That's what turned it around. And this is what you're going to see more of. You see these schools in Texas now, they're going to be spending money hand over fist to get the best college recruits into their place. Look at the University of Texas. They're going to spend this year $56 million on a roster for college football. Put that in context. The Tampa Bay Rays spent $87 million on their baseball roster, and that's a professional baseball team. You're talking about the University of Texas spending over $50 million to go out and try to win themselves a national championship. Same thing with Ohio State. Ohio State's money right now, listen, when you're talking recruiting and you're talking about a system that's broken, of course it's broken. Look, if I'm a kid that's a second-team player at the University of Miami, and somebody calls me from Ole Miss and says, hey, Dan, I hear you're making $100,000 there at the University of Miami. I'm going to pay you $750,000 to come and play here at Ole Miss in Oxford. Would you do it? Hell yeah, I would do it. Loyalty to these programs, you show me loyalty, and you look at guys like Lane Kiffin. Look at all the coaches that leave for better jobs. Kids nowadays, and this is what they don't like. They don't like the players have the opportunity to do the same thing. Now, do I think there needs to be guardrails? Absolutely. And to Coach Golden's credit, it is a broken system. How do you fix it? I don't think you can. There's only one way. We brought this up weeks ago. You know how you can change it? All the money that you make, you're going to have a salary cap. You're going to have a situation where you're sharing and profit sharing. You know why the NFL is the number one sport in America? because they share the revenue. That's every single team in the NFL. Well, college football's never going to do that. You have haves and have-nots. And the more we get into this, when it comes to spending money and transfer portal and recruiting, the more and more you're going to see stories like this. Of course, people are tampering. They're looking for the best opportunity to win a national title. And college football, again, it's off the rails right now. But what did you expect when you opened up the floodgates? I have such great respect for this man, multiple Emmy Award winner. We are going to talk to Armen Keteyian, and we're going to talk to him about all these issues. Sports journalism, hour number 2. Keep it right here on SportsGrid. This is such a great honor for me, being friends with Armen Keteyian. He is truly one of the great journalists in Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. In my opinion, is the greatest sports show of all time. That show, you were riveted to it because it really covered and went behind the scenes. And I don't really think we see shows like that today. Armen joins us now 11 times, I believe, Emmy Award winner. He joins us here multiple times. He's got books out. We're going to talk about one of these books, The Chase, here in a second. But there's no show like that today, is there, Armen? Real Sports with Brian Gumbel, where you were a reporter. It was kind of the 60 Minutes of sports back in the day.
No question. And that was 29 years. It's the longest running show in the history of HBO. I can't even count how many. I think it was 50 plus Emmys that the show won alone. No, that's gone. Real Sports is gone. 60 Minutes Sports, which I was part of for 5 years, is gone. E60 is sort of a shell of itself these days. Outside the Lines is gone, basically, out to pasture. So that kind of journalism, certainly on the video side, has been basically decimated. And I think it's a great loss because we did hold people, to account, no question. The big leagues, we did profiles of people that, you just don't see those kinds of storytelling anymore. So it's a big loss, and it's been sort of supplemented on YouTube with certain kinds of storytelling, but it was expensive, Dan. A lot of those pieces were, I'd say most of those pieces were 6 figures to do those. Certainly the 60 Minutes side and the Real Sports side we were well into the 6 figures to do those stories, but there's a reason it was on the air for 29 years because it was just a tremendous show.
what do you make of journalism today? Do you have a problem with it? Is it in a bad place? Or do you think, again, it's more expanded because of what we're seeing with social media? And do you think the internet has maybe hurt what we're looking at with journalism? Where's your stance with it right now? I know you're writing a memoir.
These are pretty dark days, I think, for journalism right now, because yes, you have a lot of personalities, hot take artists that are on the internet and are on social media, offering their opinions on things. But I think the kind of reporting that we did, that immersive storytelling that we did, has been lost. And I'll tell you what I think the main reason is that the rights fees now, certainly for the NFL and now the NBA and MLB and the NHL, have become so expensive that the cost cutting has to come somewhere. And I think the cost cutting has come primarily on the journalism side, certainly at the network level. And, the days of Frank DeFord and Bernie Goldberg and Mary Carrillo and myself and others at Real Sports, those days are over. And, The Athletic has sort of stepped in and I think has done some of the best reporting in sports right now. Pablo Torre has his podcast that I think has had some moments. But overall, I think some of the best sports writing right now is being done in books. Ian O'Connor, people like that who have really made a name for themselves beyond his column writing, which is terrific. His book writing has been sensational.
Talk about your memoir that you're writing. You're 45 plus years in journalism. Why and what compelled you to write this now during this time?
It's funny you asked that. It's, I've collaborated on 5 different books with various people, from Mike Singletary to Catfish Hunter to George Lopez to Sonny Vaccaro to Billy Walters, the legendary sports gambler. So I've done it from sort of the outside in, but to do it from the inside out, to turn the mirror around and look at yourself and look at your career. And it's called Tightrope because I've lived on some pretty high wires in the course of my career. But it starts at kind of getting to Sports Illustrated, make a name for myself there, then going to ABC News. I never went to local television. I went straight to a network. Then from there to CBS Sports and covering the NFL and doing things for the NFL Today, and then Real Sports, and then 60 Minutes, and then CBS News. I was the chief investigative correspondent there for 7 years, going from sports to news, and then 60 and 60 Sports. And then I spent, 18 months with The Athletic on their video side before they decided to drop that. So it's the stories behind the stories, some of them that people will be familiar with, whether it's, Vince McMahon or Lee Steinberg or any of the ones I did for Real Sports and even for the networks. But there's stories in there that never saw the light of day. People that you would be very familiar with. One story in particular was the main reason why I left Sports Illustrated was when it didn't run. I spent months reporting a certain kind of story that I think will be a very interesting one. And then there's other ones in there that, like the death of Steve McNair has really been probably the one story that has cut into my heart more than almost anything I've ever done. And I wasn't finished with that reporting. So I went back and we did some additional reporting, and that'll be in the book. And I think it's going to, if it doesn't reopen the investigation, I think it would be a travesty for not only Steve and his family, but for, Sahil Kasimi, Jenny, who I never will believe was the one who killed Steve. There just was too many other suspects and too many questions about what went on with that investigation. So, I'm proud of it. And I think I hope it will be. And the reason I really wrote it was there's a lot of lessons in there that I think will work for if you want to become a journalist, the current or next generation of journalists, but also as lessons that, how you go about your business in our business and the preparation that goes into those things. And I think if you're, want to be a journalist, or you're in media studies or in communication or content creating, storytelling of any kind, I think you're going to learn quite a bit from it. And that's what I hope. It's not a vanity project as much as I'm just trying to, I have all these boxes that are up in my garage, 22 of them. I kept almost everything of importance from my days at SI going forward. So it's almost 45 plus years of my work. And it's filled with, memos and clips and scripts and all sorts of things that found their way into the book. So, we'll see what happens. It's HarperCollins has it. It's coming out next year. And, I feel very proud what I accomplished. I just turned it in about a month ago.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to read this thing. And I got to ask you here, just to go back on that McNair, because it's near and dear to my heart. I knew Steve, and not to give us anything right now until the book comes out, but do you believe it was racially charged? Because that was some of the things that were said around that investigation.
I think Jenny was I call her the fall girl. She was a very easy person to point the finger at. And the way the police characterized the last few weeks of her life, that she was out of control, she was unraveling, she was distraught. Well, that's just a very small piece of her life. And was she upset about things? Yes. But was she in an emotional state where she could have shot Steve 4 times, execution style, once in each side of his head and then twice in his chest? That's just for a girl that had never so much has held a gun in her life. And there were other suspects. Certainly the one, his name is Adrian Gilliam Jr., who was a convicted felon and armed robbery and attempted murder, supposedly sold her the murder weapon. Nobody could prove it. It was his word against everybody else, in that case. And it just is one of those things that that's really haunted me for a long time. And I'm there's 2 chapters in this book on McNair, and I think they're really, they're going to break some news.
Absolutely. We're going to continue our conversation here with Armen Keteyian, but our great friends at Morgan & Morgan, the #1 injury law firm in all of America for a reason. I tell you about the family in Pennsylvania that was offered $650K. They got nearly $26 million in settlement. Also, a family in Florida that was offered $350,000. They got nearly $12 million in settlement. Folks, do me a favor. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. And do me a favor. Please make sure you tell them that Big Sales sent you. We are going to talk with the legendary Armen Keteyian, and we're going to get his thoughts on another book that he wrote, The Chase, and continue more of our conversation on today's journalism here on SportsGrid. are continuing our great conversation here with Armen Keteyian. He's got a book coming out, his memoirs next year. He's got a book we're going to talk about here in a second, The Chase. But in the timeout, we were talking about Penn State because here's been my opinion on Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno loved me, and I had a great relationship with him after the 87 Fiesta Bowl. But my opinion with this was, Armen, I never held him responsible, but I held him accountable. It's his program. I mean, his name's on the marquee. Whatever goes on there, you're accountable for that, dude. I mean, how did you look at it? And I know that this is going to be in the book as well.
I did 75 stories for CBS News involving the Sandusky from really the beginning of the story with the indictment when that news broke, right up through the trial. And when Joe passed away, I did an obit on him, and I covered the trial in Pennsylvania for the network. There was no question that the administration from the president on down were aware of allegations that Sandusky was having inappropriate behavior with young boys going back 10 years before the actual story broke. And Paterno was aware of it. When Louis Freeh did the investigation and came out with the report, clearly from the internal memos and emails that the administration was aware of it and tried to cover it up. And they covered it up because, for one basic reason, to protect the brand. And that, to me, was beyond criminal. And I sat in a courtroom when those young boys who were then 10 years old and now 18 or 20 years old were recalling their experiences with Sandusky, and you could hear a pin drop. And when they weren't crying and they were pouring their hearts out about the abuse and how it started and how they were groomed. So I didn't hold a lot of sympathy for the We Are Penn State crowd. And, Happy Valley is a very sheltered, very cloistered kind of environment. And I can understand when you're there, Penn State is everything. But when that broke and you had national reporters from everywhere, it was a travesty beyond belief. And I don't have, my sympathy goes for those survivors, those young boys. And I have zero for anybody at Penn State that was involved in this, including
What do you
Paterno.
think of Joe Paterno?
Joe was Joe Pa. He was St. Joe, and for a very good reason. He won more football games than anybody else. He did it the right way. He believed in athletics and academics as an equal part of the equation. You could go on forever with the kind of athletes and the kind of men that he produced out of that program, but that doesn't. And I would say that Mike McQueary, who will be in this book, in this memoir, you talk about a person that whose life was basically destroyed. Certainly his professional life was destroyed, and large part of his personal life. His marriage fell apart. He was forced to sue the university in order to get not only his back pay, but he got more than $10 million from the university. So if you're talking about victims in that case, I would say the survivors themselves. And then, Mike McQueary was the one who blew the whistle, and it cost him almost everything for his career, no doubt.
I wanted to get your thoughts and take you over here to the book, The Chase, here, just for this brief time we have here. And I'm watching the World Cup. I wonder how much that you tie that book into what we see with the World Cup, because, like I said, the parents that push those kids to try to get on that men's U.S. team, just your thoughts on men's U.S. soccer and that book tied into where we are with soccer today.
Well, yeah, The Chase it's called The Chase because it's the state of youth sports in America. And I'm working on it with Lars Anderson, a former senior writer at Sports Illustrated, terrific writer. And he's got 3 kids that are going through it on a very personal level right now, a son who plays golf and 2 daughters that are twins that are in softball. It's a very complicated story right now because private equity money is pouring in. Parents are like freaked out. I've already talked to some parents who have literally gone to therapy, to get psychological help because they're so entwined with their children's success. And the pressures that you're seeing now at 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, and you see kids leaving the sports at 13 and 14 because they're just completely burned out or their bodies are breaking down already. And I think you see the United States soccer team, there's evidence of this kind of institutionalism that's going on right now. Like if you're not part of, like, let's say the LA Galaxy's academy, and you're not working through certain steps as a youth soccer player, you have no chance of making an Olympic team. And a lot of parents believe that they have no chance of going to a D1 or D2 or D3 school. And that's what's driving it too, is the parents believe, and it's a deception. I think 7% of Little League, of youth sports athletes played either D1, D2, or D3, 7%. You ask the parents and they believe it's 50 or 60% are going to make it. They're living in a fantasy world. So Lars and I have spent a lot of time already, but we're looking at girls lacrosse, girls softball, football, certainly Little League baseball, which has become, the last numbers I got for Little League were 2023. Their revenue was like $38 million. And it's north of 40 million now that they're bringing in every year. So that's become, it's become big business for in baseball. So I think that they're on this hamster wheel where they're afraid to get off, because if they get off, they believe they've lost their opportunity to move forward. But I can tell you something, those 3-sport days are gone now. When I grew up playing 3 sports, I'm sure you did too. Those days are over. So it's probably going to be, I think, if not the most interesting book I've ever done, it's going to certainly be one of them. And it's certainly a topical story at the moment, for sure.
No question about it. And on top of that, of course, you go back to the book you wrote on Tiger and his dad and his family and all that too. So you tie that in. Make sure you check out these great, fabulous books that Armen Keteyian wrote. And Armen, we'll do this again when the book comes out, the memoir. Thank you so much, my friend. Nick Saban enters the new king in college sports. We'll do that next year on SportsGrid. So it looks like there's a new horse right now leading the race here when it comes to college sports, and that's the Big Ten, according to Nick Saban. He's saying right now that the Big Ten is now a more dominant conference than what the Southeastern Conference is. Saban has gone into the SEC meetings here in Tampa and made those comments and said, look, the Big Ten is spending the money, and the Big Ten right now is the premier conference over the Southeastern Conference. Well, if you take a look at what they've done, 3 straight national championships in college football with 3 different programs, both men and women, they own the national championship. Those are the money makers, folks. Those are the ones that move the needle when it comes to generating revenue. The rest of the programs, track and field, baseball, what have you, those are minor compared to college basketball and the men and the women and also college football. And here's why. The Big Ten has the money on the table now. And when the money was put on the table, the Southeastern Conference, all those years, were paying people under the table. All those side deals that the conferences were doing back in the day, or the programs in the conference were doing back in the day. Now, when you had to put that money on the table, now it's a fair fight. And the Big Ten is now battling the SEC. Why? How has that happened? Well, you've got more money being dished out by the Big Ten because the Big Ten is now being proactive when it comes to nil. They're spending buckets of money on getting these programs and all of their programs. They're not just looking for some of their programs. Folks, Indiana winning the national championship. You know, I saw the ESPYs last week, and I made the comment, are you really telling me you think the New York Knicks are the number one story and the number one team in all of America? Are you crazy? For over 136 years, 136 years of college football, Indiana football blew. It was terrible. And now they're the national champions. 16-0. That program is gone. Incredible. That's the story. And they did it with spending money. Look, that conference is now the preeminent conference in all of college sports because they're spending the money. They're getting great ways of how they're bringing money in. They're generating buku money, and they're also paying their college coaches. What does the Southeastern Conference do? The Southeastern Conference, at their meetings in Tampa, said, hey, you know what might be in the best interest for us? Let's get out of the NCAA and become more like the Premier League. Hey, you want to take your bat and ball because the Big Ten is beating you over the head with that bat now when it comes to economics and finances, and they're beating you at the gate, and they're beating you on the field, and they're beating you on the court. They're doing everything that you used to do to them because the money is on the table. Look, I'm going to say it again. Them getting USC, UCLA, and Oregon into the Big Ten has been a massive influx of money that has gone in to the Big Ten. Southeastern Conference they got a big haul here to try to get back into that picture. That's why they're spending the money like they're spending at LSU to go and get a guy like Lane Kiffin. Look, Alabama's not where it once was because why? Look at where the money is now going in the SEC. The money is now going to Texas. All those Texas schools that you're seeing pour money in, get used to it. You're going to see more schools out of the state of Texas that are going to spend all of this money when it comes to trying to win a national championship. And you've got great television deals going on right now in the Big Ten for the football and basketball programs. Look, the Big Ten right now is rolling. And the Big Ten, could they even more so expand to try to put a team down in the state of Florida, like maybe bring in a team like USF in? They are being proactive. That conference is definitely taking the lead over the SEC, which I thought was not possible. Look, when you still look at the NFL draft, the Southeastern Conference right now are still putting the most players into the NFL draft. But that's changing. Look at the teams that right now that put all those first-round draft choices in this recent NFL draft. The SEC fell behind the Big Ten again. And Saban is right. All that money that used to go and being poured into the SEC is now being poured in to the Big Ten. look, SEC's got to change their road, and they've got to get things rolling in the right direction here, because at the end of the day here, the Southeastern Conference, they have won 3 straight national titles in football with 3 different programs, and they own the women and the men's national championship in hoop. That's where your money comes from. That's where all the generating income is going into all these programs in the Big Ten. SEC's got a problem, and it's called the Big Ten. And they've got to do something, and that's called winning. Because right now, the Big Ten is taking it. We are going to switch gears, and we are going to drop a bunt, and we're going to talk to our friend, Bobby Valentine. Get his thoughts. 27 strikeouts in an all-star game? What? We'll do that next here on SportsGrid. Boy, I got to tell you, the story, in my opinion, in the first half of the Major League Baseball season has to be the Tampa Bay Rays. I mean, what they've done and how they've been able to stay in pace right now in the American League East with that payroll, and how they've been able to stay ahead of the New York Yankees has been remarkable. And this goes down to the managing of Kevin Cash. Look at all the players that they've had go into the All-Star game we just saw last week. And on top of that, they've won 60 ball games in the first half with $107 million payroll. It is easily the story of the year. And you got to say, look, when you got guys like Junior Caminero that are on that baseball team, and you've got an opportunity to win the way that they win, it's really remarkable. Do you know that in the last 15 years, the 4th winningest team in all of Major League Baseball has been the Tampa Bay Rays? What a storyline. I mean, it has been absolutely one of the best stories that we've seen in all of Major League Baseball. And for the job that Eric Neander has done, the general manager of that team, it has absolutely been an incredible run here. So without further ado here, we're going to bring in our friend, Bobby Valentine, and get his thoughts. Bobby, am I right? One of the storylines that we've seen in the first half of the season has been this Rays team and how well they've done. They're in first place still in the AL East.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me, Dan. Are we on?
You got it, man. We got you.
Good. Hey, it's the story of every year. The Rays are the model organization. People never give them the credit that they deserve. It's been year in and year out since Stu Sternberg bought that team and now sold it. That organization gets it. And I am not sure what that magic potion is. Whatever it is, they should bottle it up and sell it on the street corner.
Well, let's go over to another organization that's on the other end of that, Bobby. David Stearns came out and had a press conference, and he was talking about, boy, we are just not in a great place. The New York Mets, the Mets mess. What should he do as they get closer to the August 3rd trading deadline? In your opinion, what do the Mets do next?
Well, again, I don't think that that's about talent necessarily, even though it doesn't seem like talent mixes very well. Attitude filters down, and somehow the wrong attitude is getting into that clubhouse. And no matter what kind of talent you have, you can't overcome a bad attitude.
So you think this is more internal, Bobby, that it needs to have an adjustment when it comes to the culture in the locker room and inside the clubhouse, that you need a manager or someone to go in there and change that attitude and culture?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the manager. I don't know if it's a player. It's an entire feeling, and that feeling is it germinates. It's organic. It's not implemented by outside forces, unless those outside forces actually put the entire group together. You know, playing the game isn't about who's hitting a home run and who's throwing 100 miles an hour. When are we going to start to figure that out? Look at the Tampa Bay Rays. What it's about is having guys contribute when they're asked to contribute, and that's a 3 hour sequence during the game. And the little things matter.
Absolutely here. So let me go back to the All-Star game with you, Bobby. 27 strikeouts
I
in an
didn't watch it.
All-Star
I don't know
game.
anything about that.
Okay, well, so
Yeah.
wait a minute. Something that you loved your entire life. You're not watching the All-Star game. So you've lost interest in the All-Star game?
Yeah, of course. I see those guys play every day, if I want to see them on TV. To watch in an exhibition, that's not my cup of tea. I have other things that I'd rather do. So, yeah, all-star game in baseball. If they paid the players a lot of money if they won, then there might be an incentive. The idea of home field advantage in a World Series, that's ridiculous. When it was Pride, and it meant a lot, win or lose, American League, National League, when there was such a thing as an American League and a National League, I thought that was a fun situation. But just the guys throwing fast and swinging hard, again, isn't my cup of tea.
What was when I grew up, I mean, Parker and Wright throwing Downing out at the plate, Reggie off the light tower. These were things I grew up with, Bobby, that were signature things when I grew up, because I waited for that All-Star game. When did baseball lose that signature moment for that event? In your opinion, was it interleague play that hurt that game so much so that game, like you just said, hey, I'd rather watch the Dodgers maybe a couple weeks from now? What happened to that All-Star game? Is it because of interleague play?
Possibly, probably, yeah. I don't know what lost it. In 2001, I managed it in Seattle. It was a big thrill managing the All-Star game. When I got there and I saw the lack of competition, of the win factor had nothing to do with anything, and it was disappointing to me, to tell you the truth. And these games. Need a fix somehow if you want true competition, but it's hard to ask these guys to ante up and rev it on up just to play a game that's in some city, and instead of having off days, you're traveling. Instead of being with your family and relaxing, you're playing. It's a different world these days.
Boy, I'll tell you what, I never thought I'd hear Bobby Valentine say, I have no interest in the All-Star game. All right, let me take you to the Dodgers. I know you're interested in this team here. Are you concerned with Ohtani here? In your opinion, right now, they're going to kind of slow walk him up to the mound. They said they're going to wait and see how that knee ends up working out here. But how important is he again to this run here? They got so much depth on that baseball team. Can they see Judge? They couldn't lose him, right? Because the Yankees right now are in trouble without not having Judge in that lineup. How long could the Dodgers go with not having Ohtani in that lineup?
Well, without him swinging, they'll miss a little, but they're going to win the division. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to plan Ohtani's health, looking at the playoffs, not looking at the next series that they're playing. They're a real good team in a pretty watered down league, so they have no worries about getting to the playoffs. Their only concern is going to be to have him healthy to probably do both things once the playoffs begin.
The Yankees. Are you concerned about the Yankees now? I mean, should they be big movers when it comes to the trading deadline?
Yeah, it seems that they need a run. I think they have enough of talent. I think their pitching now is getting back healthy, and they should be in good shape. They're going to make the playoffs, I believe, without a doubt. They're going to make the playoffs. But how long a run they could put together is going to depend on the health of the big boys, Stanton and Judge, and the contribution of the rest of that team, including their bullpen.
Bobby, what's happened to the American League this year? It just doesn't look like good. Now, is it parity, Bobby, or is it bad baseball that's going on in the American League?
Oh, I don't know parity. It doesn't seem like there's parity, because the Yankees are spending a few $100 million, and the Jays are, the Rays are spending a 30 million or so, and they're in first, and the Yankees aren't. So I'm not sure about parity. It's an off year. There's really not good teams. There's good players, but not good teams.
All right, we're going to continue our conversation here. I want to talk to him about the Red Sox too, man. I mean, 9-1 over the last 10. We'll do that next right here on SportsGrid.
You wouldn't have your ex officiate your wedding.
Do you, Jake? Liar? Cheater? Gaslighter?
So why have anyone but America's largest injury law firm handle your injury case? With over $30 billion recovered for our clients, there's a reason to go big.
Gaslighter, coitus crier, he's got more red flags than a bullfighter's attire.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
All right, we're going to continue our conversation here with our friend Bobby Valentine here. He joins us here. I want to take you to Philadelphia here now, Bobby, and what Dave Dombrowski has done with that baseball team, especially what Donnie Mattingly has done with that team. Now he's talking about potentially wanting to continue managing. And a couple months ago, Dave Dombrowski had offered that job to Alex Cora, who was fired in Boston. I mean, if this thing rolls out here, do you think this Dodger team could run that, or do you think this Philly team could run that Dodger team down?
Yeah, I think they could beat them in the playoffs if their pitching's healthy. They have pretty good starting pitching, and they hit a lot of home runs. So I think the Phillies are a team to watch. There's no doubt about that, and they're fun to watch too.
Absolutely here. So again, let me take you to a guy, Cal Raleigh, for the Seattle Mariners and what he's been able to do. Bobby, is he the best player in the game right now? He's in the most important position behind the dish. He's a guy that is rated the top defensive player at any position in all of Major League Baseball. And he's a switch hitter. And a year ago, he had 60 bombs. Is that guy is he the best player in baseball?
Cal Raleigh?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't think he's. I don't think he's the best player in baseball. No.
No. So you would still go down the lane of Shohei Ohtani?
Well, yeah, I think Shohei's. If he's healthy, he's real good, and Judge is real good, and there's a couple young players who are spectacular, baseball has good. They have good talent. When you said there's not good teams, who I really like is Jose Ramirez as a player, and watching him. When you say best player, watching him is really a special treat. Because he does everything, and for some reason, that intensive, competitive spirit that he brings every day to the plate and to the field is contagious with that team.
See, he's your favorite player to watch right now, then, right? He's your favorite guy to watch.
I like his competitiveness, yeah, and he does it year in and year out. Amazingly though, Cleveland, without him in the lineup for a couple of weeks, were able to kind of maintain their winning spirit. But if they lost him for a long term, I think it would really affect their chances of winning.
Bobby, they got some issues going on in San Diego. We were just talking about the Padres, and they're just not hitting this year. And with all the things going on there, and the third baseman's not hitting. You've got so many guys there not really hitting on that baseball team. AJ Preller, the general manager of that team, boy, has spent over $170 million, and they're just not getting that baseball team going. If you're the manager of a team like that that's underachieving, what do you do to get that team back on track again?
Dan, again, how do you figure that out? I don't know what you do. Machado's playing better now, and he's hitting at a good clip the last few weeks. And I don't know what happened to Tatis from going to a world class to mediocre. And some of their young players have not developed the way they thought they would. So they're at a crossroads right now. It's the trade deadline. They have Miller in the bullpen, who's a prized possession. He's a difference maker. There are teams out there who think that, if the Yankees stumble and fall, and if the Dodgers don't have their full staff, that it's a winnable situation. And with a closer like Miller, it can make the difference with some teams. So it's going to be interesting next couple of weeks.
Do you think Mike Trout made a mistake on spending his entire career in Anaheim and not trying to go somewhere and win? I mean, Bobby, he never went really, if you think about it, he never really was an impact player in the postseason. He's going to go to he's going to go to the Baseball Hall of Fame for sure. But do you think he made a mistake by staying in Anaheim?
Well, I don't know. I think he's got about a 20-minute drive before and after the game. He has a beautiful house on the hill. He's got an ocean view. His kids are in great schools. His wife is really happy with their surroundings. Why? Why is that a mistake? I think Mike Trout's been very happy in his life and in his career. And like you say, he had that stretch of MVP years, which was hard to replicate, and he replicated them year after year for a 5-year, 6-year period. And for him to let off the throttle a little and be a little less than the greatest in the game, I think that's kind of a human trait.
You know what, though, Bobby? Thinking about what you just said, he chose comfort zone and he chose quality of life, didn't he? Over anything else. I mean, look, he enjoyed playing the game. He made a boatload of money. Like you said, he's got the ultimate view there, seeing the ocean. I mean, so he just chose quality of life over, again, maybe going somewhere else and trying to win a ring.
Yeah, listen to yourself, Dan. Who gives a shit about winning a ring compared to quality of life? Come on, you only live for so long, and to be comfortable and happy is a wonderful thing. And of course, winning when it's all said and done, and you look back and you say, "Oh yeah, you won." It makes a difference in reputation, but it doesn't necessarily make a difference in character if he's going about things the right way. And when I see Mike, it looks like he goes about things in the right way.
Bobby, do you miss managing at all? Do you miss being in the game and managing right now? Would you like to be on the bench again?
Well, if I wanted to, or if I had the time in my life that I was going to give to others as much as you have to give to others to manage a major league team, I'd say, yeah, I miss it, but I don't miss it because I'm doing my own thing. I'm trying to take care of my life. I'm 76 years old, and I gave myself many, too many probably years of my life to other people. And I hate to say it's time to take care of myself now.
Absolutely. Bobby V, I got to tell you, I appreciate you because you are a straightforward shooter. You will always be a straightforward shooter. And guess what? I think baseball misses the personalities like yourself. Bobby V, thank you so much. I appreciate you doing this. We will have final thoughts next here on SportsGrid. So we have a new anti-social media activist now, and his name is Lane Kiffin. So Lane Kiffin now has deleted all of his social media accounts. A subdued Lane Kiffin says he's given up social media after being challenged by his son Knox. And Kiffin was philosophically about life without social media. He said he's learned a lot about subtracting things from his life. Mentions alcohol and toxic relationships. I'm assuming that means hot yoga. It's going to be kind of tough for Lane here to contact all the co-eds there at LSU now, because, again, that was kind of a source for him, being able to connect with all the co-eds there at Ole Miss. All those co-eds were starting to post some of the, dialogue going back and forth between the former head coach of Ole Miss and some of the co-eds there. It's going to be a rough one there at LSU. How in the world is he going to be able to handle the hot yoga and all the things that he handles there with all the co-eds now with all them Lady Tigers? Boy, I'll tell you, I got to hand it to Lane. Here's a guy that is absolutely the biggest BS artist in the history of college football. And now he's going to be an anti-social media guy, and he's not going to have any of his accounts active. Well, that's because his wife, Layla, has basically said, get off social media or get out. Okay, so look, this guy has got to be one of the most untruthful and most non-trustworthy coach in the game today. Lane Kiffin, how do you trust? I can't believe that dude's is Monty Kiffin's son. This guy is the most untrustworthy guy that you could ever play for. Look, I've made this comment, and I will go all in and off the top rope on Lane because of the places and the people that he has affected where he's gone. When he was at Tennessee, not one person came forward and defended his time there at Tennessee. When he was at USC, it was a complete train wreck when he was at Southern Cal. When he was at Ole Miss behind the scenes, his wife left him. Now they've come back, and I'm glad to see Layla back with Lane. Hopefully that straightens his life out. Supposedly, he's not doing the booze and the drugs that he was doing that he talked about years ago, and he's straightening his life out. Now he gets an opportunity to go to LSU. Look, I've made the comment, and I'll continue to make the comment. He's the most untrustworthy coach in college football today. You don't trust a guy like that who has self-centered issues, and he's only thinking about himself. You go and you play for a coach that wants to get the best out of you. Listen, I don't mind coaches that are out there making Kurt Cignetti the top money. But when you go play for Kurt Cignetti, the way you motivate players is to get the best out of the players that you possibly can, to put them in the best position that you could possibly put them in. That's what a coach's responsibility is to make you the best player you can be. Along with that, make you the best player and person you can possibly be. How can Lane Kiffin talk about making a kid the best person he could possibly be when he can't make his own self the best person he could possibly be? That means you don't trust the guy. Look, it starts when you're a coach, personal relationships. I'll give you a story about Jimmy Johnson. This is a story that happened to me when I was at the University of Miami. I'll never forget it. I'm at a hotel. I take the blankets and I take the towels that were in the hotel room, and I took them because I take them to my dorm room. Jimmy Johnson calls me the next day, right there on practice. Why did you steal the blanket? And why did you steal those towels out of the hotel? Coach, I didn't have a blanket and I don't have any towels. Jimmy looked at me and said, for God's sakes, don't ever do that again. I went back the next day. I gave the blanket back and the towels. On my bed, there was a brand new blanket, pillows, towels, toiletries. I show up to practice the next day. Coach Johnson, I walked up to him. I said, Coach, thank you he goes, thank you for what? And I said, well, thank you for doing that for me. And I didn't have a blanket. Jimmy looked at me and says, don't ever do that again. Get back in line. Get back in the huddle. He was going to throw me off the team. But because I told him that I had taken that because I didn't have a blanket to keep myself warm, he said, don't ever do that again. Coach had a personal relationship with me that exists till this day. You think that guy has personal relationships with his players that exist to this day? No way. That's a coach. That's 40 years ago. That coach is still one of my best friends and treats me like when I was 19 years old. That's the difference between being a great coach and a fraud. That's coaching. We will see you on Sunday. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you on the flip side.